Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the walk. Today is Monday, December 16th, and we are up to the prophecy against Tyre, which, as I'm sure you've already assumed, means that we've got to understand more about this city of Tyre. So as I did some digging, I found this wonderful website. It's called preceptaustin.org. And they had a ton of information about Tyre. So I'm just going to read that to you verbatim so we can get that background of who Tyre was, what kind of people were there, and why God was against Tyre. So it says, Tyre was a great Phoenician city and world capital for some 2,000 years, deriving its rule from domination of the seas. Ezekiel 26 predicted Tyre's violent future and destruction at a time when it was still a dominant power. So that's something very important to keep in mind. You want to remember that as this prophecy was coming out, Tyre looked like the greatest nation in the world. It was a power, a superpower. And to hear of its destruction would have seemed very odd. Back to preceptaustin.org. Ezekiel predicted that many nations would come up against Tyre, that Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar would be the first to attack, that Tyre's walls and towers would be broken down, that the stones, timbers, and debris of that great city would be thrown into the sea, that its location would become a bare rock and a place for the dyeing of fishermen's nets, and finally that the city of Tyre would never be rebuilt. Note that 8 times in Ezekiel 26, it is clearly stated that the words spoken are from the Lord. What does the number 8 mean? 8 is the number that represents Christ. So then we get into Precept Austin. The history testifies that all this is precisely what happened. Many nations did come up against Tyre, including the Babylonians, Greeks, Romans, Muslims, and Crusaders. In 586 BC, 3 years after Ezekiel's prophecy, Nebuchadnezzar was the first of these invaders who, after a 13-year siege, broke down the walls and towers of mainland Tyre, not the island, thus fulfilling the first of Ezekiel's prophecies against Tyre. Nebuchadnezzar massacred all of Tyre's inhabitants except for those who escaped to an island fortress a half-mile out in the Mediterranean Sea. It is notable that it was Tyre's abundance of fresh water that allowed the city to hold out against Nebuchadnezzar for so many years. In the years after Nebuchadnezzar's crushing defeat, the people of the city transferred the wealth of the former mainland of Tyre to an adjacent island, and there the new city of Tyre prospered, protected by the sea and walls extending out into the sea to protect the port. So what's our big takeaway from here? Tyre got hit by Nebuchadnezzar from Babylon, and many of the people escaped to this island, and that island kind of became like the new center of Tyre. So that brings us to Ezekiel 26, verse 1. In the 11th year, on the first day of the month, the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, because Tyre said concerning Jerusalem, Aha, the gate of the peoples is broken. It has swung open to me. I shall be replenished. Now she is laid waste. So Tyre said that Jerusalem looked weak. We're going to go in after it. Now, in the Fire Study Bible, there was a note about Tyre. It was the capital of Phoenicia. It was located 60 miles northwest of Nazareth on the Mediterranean coast. Part of the city was an island and part was coastland at the foot of the Lebanon mountains. Tyre celebrated Jerusalem's destruction because it believed it would benefit financially from trade advantages, since Judah was no longer a competitor. Tyre's desire for wealth, with no thought of the suffering it caused others, brought God's judgment. The city finally came under political rule and control of many nations, including the Babylonians, the Persians, and later the Greeks, who were led by Alexander the Great. So what we've got here is we've got a very powerful city, and they are saying, ooh, there's some low-hanging fruit. Jerusalem's looking pretty weak. Let's go take it. and God puts a stop to it and sends these nations against it. God does not allow his holy people to be demolished. Think of everything that the Jewish people have been through, and they're still here. How are they still here? Because of God's divine protection. Have a wonderful day. God bless, and keep walking the walk.